Hey guys, have you ever left a job interview feeling like you nailed it but never got a call back? If so, you're not alone. I've been there and I know it's really frustrating. But here's the thing, there are a few key mistakes that you could be making in your interviews without even realizing it. And they could be seriously hurting your chances of landing a job. And I've been on both sides of the table. As a candidate, I've given more than 1,000 interviews since I started my career way back in 2013, and now currently working as a senior product manager. I've interviewed a number of candidates where I see these mistakes quite commonly. And with all my experience, I'm going to break down the top 3 critical mistakes that I see candidates make and what to do instead to impress your interview. And remember this guys, you could have the best resume in the world, but on the interview day, if you commit any of these mistakes, then there's no point at all. You could be seriously hurting your chances. So make sure to watch this video until the end, as I'll be going in depth into these 3 mistakes and what to do instead to succeed in your interviews. Let's get right into it. Number 1, talking too less or too much. Talking too less might seem like you're not prepared enough for the interview, or it could also come off as you're not interested in the role itself, which could be a major red flag. And on the other hand, talking too much can feel like you're probably nervous or you're just trying to make up things on the go, which is not a good thing as well. So you need to find a balance between both and try to talk only as much as needed to convey the right amount of information. And how can you do this? And there are a number of ways to do this. For example, you could follow a format called the STAR format, which is situation, task, action, and result. If you follow this format whenever you're answering an interview question, you'll keep your answer concise and straight to the point. That will also make your answer very effective, and you'll also leave a very good impression in the interview. And also remember these things. I see a lot of candidates do this mistake. Whenever a question is asked, they try to jump right into answering the question without even giving it a thought. Instead, what I'd advise is that take a couple of seconds. There is no problem at all. As an interviewer, I know myself, I would really appreciate if someone took a couple of seconds just to think through and then answer to a question. Instead, what happens is if you try to jump right into answering a question, you might fumble or you might just go on talking a lot, which is probably not required or irrelevant. So I would definitely recommend take a couple of seconds. It's totally fine. Think through how you can answer and what you want to answer before you start answering an interview question. This is a very important thing, I'd say. And also watch for cues from the interviewer. If you feel like they're disengaged or probably distracted, try to wrap up your answer, or if they're actively listening to it, or if you feel like probably you could add a little bit more detail into it and you feel they're still engaged, that's when probably try to add some more information. But make sure every answer you give, try to keep it to a minimum and balanced so that you'll have a good impression. And also remember this guys, your interview should feel like a free-flowing, authentic conversation and not like a monologue where you just keep talking and probably there is not enough chance for you and the interviewer to make a proper genuine connection. That's very important, because personally, whenever I felt that genuine connection in the interviews, those are the ones that I actually got through. You can even think about the interviews that you've succeeded in the past. This is something that I commonly observe. Whenever you create that authentic connection in your interviews, that's when there are very high chances of succeeding in that interview. So keep this in mind. And number 2, going unprepared. This is a very big mistake I see a lot of candidates make. For example, you're interviewing for a particular company. I would recommend you to at least spend maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes just going through their website just to understand what domain or niche they're operating in the first place, what kind of products they have, and if you have any further details from your job description on which kind of product you might be working in. If you can gather some details around the product or service you're going to interview for and basic awareness or the foundational knowledge about that company, that will really give a good impression and that will help the interviewer understand that you came to the interview prepared. And this is very, very important, guys, because for a minute, think what you do if you're an interviewer, right? You would expect the candidate who's coming up for an interview to at least know what the company does and what kind of products or services you offer, at least at a very basic level. I wouldn't ask you to spend hours and hours researching about the company, but at least try to spend some amount of time just to get that basic information about the company, and that will actually take you a long way in the interview. That will leave a very good impression to the interviewer. So make sure you put that minimum effort, and also remember you might be applying for tens or hundreds of jobs. At the end of the day, you might get only a couple of interview calls, and when you get those interview calls, it's important that you put in the effort, guys, because if you're not even putting that amount of effort or dedication into preparing for an interview, then your hard work goes waste. So I would definitely recommend every one of you to spend at least a couple of minutes just gathering the basic information about the company and the products they work on. And finally, number 3, not asking any questions. This is, I feel, the most easiest thing to do, but at the same time, it has the biggest impact, because whenever you ask questions as a candidate, it gives a really good impression to the interviewer, and especially if you ask some thoughtful questions, right? Like, for example, how does the team operate? What is the working style of the team? What kind of technologies or agile methodologies do the team follow? And how are they structured? Or maybe you could ask something about the growth and culture at the company, like what kind of career growth can you expect once you join the company? There are a wide range of thoughtful and interesting questions that you can ask. What do you call, type in a little prompt in AI these days into ChatGPT or Claude or any other AI. You can easily get a bunch of very interesting and thoughtful questions that you can use for any kind of interviews, and it will definitely leave a very good impression to the interviewer. It'll feel like you put in a lot of effort, you are coming up with a lot of thoughtful questions. It does make a lot of sense, guys. Don't miss this opportunity, because with the least amount of effort, you can have a very high impact. So it's kind of a low-hanging fruit when you're giving interviews. So this is something that I definitely recommend you guys to do this, and don't miss this opportunity. And with that, I've covered the top 3 interview mistakes that I often see being repeated, and I hope these points do add some value to your next interview. And just make sure, guys, be confident and be positive about your interview. Do a little bit of homework before you give any interview, and stay positive and answer questions confidently. And even if you're not sure about a particular question in an interview, don't get tensed or nervous. It's totally fine. But don't try to come up with information that you're not aware of, because that will backfire very badly. Instead, if you respond politely mentioning that you need to do probably a couple more research and analyze before you could answer, that will make much more sense instead of trying to come up with some answer on the go. So I think that's all. Keep these points in mind and do well in your interviews. All the very best. And if you have any more questions on how to do well in your interviews, don't forget to drop them in the comment section. I read every comment and I'll reply to them. And if you have any suggestions for the next videos, please do let me know, and I'll happily work on them. Thanks so much, and all the very best.